You are listening to The Tatiana Show. This show may contain adult content, language, and humor and is intended for mature audiences. If that's not you, please stop listening. Nothing you hear on The Tatiana Show is intended as financial advice, legal advice, or really anything other than entertainment. Take everything you hear with a grain of salt. Oh, and if you're listening to us on an affiliate network, the ideas and views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the network that you're listening on or of any sponsors or any affiliate products you may hear about on this show. Now that that's squared away, let's start the show. Hey there, it's time for the show, The Tatiana Show, where you make friends and talk life and crypto. Thank you to our sponsor, blocktap.io. Please go to their website and check out their universal cryptocurrency API to get reliable cryptocurrency data. blocktap.io. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tatiana Show. Today, we're going to be talking about escape. How do we escape the overlords? How do we get rid of our governments? If we can't get rid of our governments, can we run away to any place in the world? Is there anywhere that is still free? We're going to talk to Mark Edge from Free Talk Live, which is sort of a personal pet project of his, is researching these kinds of places, which I learned about when we were hanging together in Mexico. And I've wanted to talk to him about it because I, like many of our listeners, have wondered, where do I go to if it really goes to pot in this country? And with the way that things are going, it's a little sketchy out there. But before we get started on the show, I wanted to make sure that we said thank you to one of our sponsors, Salt. Salt offers cash loans collateralized by Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Getting a loan through their online platform is easy. There are no income checks, no credit checks, and no origination fees. During the life of the loan, your crypto assets are locked in deep cold storage and protected by a robust multi-sig process. Your assets are 100% insured. You can pay back as much as you want, whenever you want, and wrap up your loan at any time. There are no prepayment penalties. Once your loan has been paid back, your assets are returned to you in full. Visit saltlending.com to sign up for an account and start exploring your options today. I did an interview with the Salt guys a few months back, and one of the things that I liked about them was that they were a U.S.-based company. I know a lot of companies are sort of testing this out, and U.S. regulation is pretty stiff. So I feel like if you're going to risk your money anywhere, it's probably better to do it in such a hardcore jurisdiction. So I don't know. I like those guys. They're out in Denver. Go check them out. Saltlending.com. I mean, it's an interesting way to use your crypto. I'm always a little bit afraid to part with it, but sometimes, especially in a bear market, you have to part with it. So I don't know, just something to check out. Not financial advice, but I think it's a pretty cool company. I've hung out with those guys. They seem pretty solid. So, with any kind of financial product, you have to do your own research, but check it out. So Josh, what's going on with you? Welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Tatiana. Yeah, it's nice to be back here. It's a public holiday here in Germany, so we're down celebrating Men's Day.
I like it. I like that there's a Men's Day. I appreciate you for all the bugs that you killed.
Thanks, Tatiana. No, it's been a wonderful week, and I'm definitely interested in what do you do when you need to leave the country. And actually, it's quite dear to my heart because our CMO is Venezuelan, and his parents are political refugees in the States, and they just can't leave. They've got problems even leaving the States because of certain paperwork that isn't there, and it's really complex. And a lot of refugees have these issues, so I'm really excited to discuss this.
Absolutely. So we're going to bring Mark on in just a second, but really quick, Josh, Vaultoro has also been sponsoring the Tatiana Show in a more long-term way. So if people want to check out some of the content that we've been doing, Josh is still going to be on the show. He's still, doing his usual Joshy thing, but they're supporting the show in a more formal way. And what we've done is we're doing a series of different interviews that are sort of Vaultoro sponsored specifically, where we're talking about the importance of having gold as an option for people. Crypto isn't always the option. Through Vaultoro, people are able to basically leverage against both. So real quick before we start with Mark, anything that you want to tell us about Vaultoro? I know we've got some big announcements coming up.
Yes, huge amount of announcements coming up. Very excited. We've been working on Vaultoro 2.0, but people always ask, well, isn't it time to drop gold and buy Bitcoin and stuff like that because of this drop gold campaign? But really, why would you want to store if you go into Tether or anything like that, these are all unallocated, these are all uninsured and unaudited. Whereas gold bullion, it's fully audited, fully insured, and fully allocated in your name as your legal property. So if anything happens to us as an exchange, it doesn't matter. You've got a bar of gold sitting by Pro-Orum, which is one of the largest voting facilities in Switzerland, and Brinks. So, why use fiat? Let's drop fiat coins. That's my motto nowadays.
It was interesting from the hedging perspective. I hear people talk about all these stable coins, and to be honest, I'm not so familiar with why that would be so helpful, but it was a good episode and I learned about that. And the thing is that you can use gold to hedge instead of Tether. Forget Tether. You can use gold. I don't know why anyone would use Tether.
Yeah, exactly. You've got total counterparty risk with the banking system, systemic risk, and also that they're not insured, they're not audited. You've got FDIC insurance or whatever it's called, but I don't think they even have that because it's not banked in America. So I think it's Malaysia, which is 60,000 per account or something. And they've only got 2 accounts, so yay, 2.8 billion down to 60. It's not much insurance. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Check it out, guys. Go to Vaultoro.com, sign up for your account, test it out. We'll probably be doing some content together where we're showing me how to use it a little bit better. But anyway, let's get to the meat of the show.
Let's get the show on the road.
Yeah, Mark Edge, a legend in the libertarian space and also an early adopter of crypto. One of the first shows, Free Talk Live, to support cryptocurrency. I know that you were accepting Bitcoin when we were visiting for Pork Fest. So welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on with us today.
Thank you. I think that Free Talk Live is the first media in the world to talk about Bitcoin. I have yet to be shown wrong. We talked about it on December the 28th, 2010. Somebody called in, a guy named Jeremy West calls in from Australia and tells us, about this currency. And we're of course skeptical. We're gold bugs and everything. And it took us a little while to kind of get it, but in January of the next year, so within a couple of weeks, Gavin Andreessen, who was at the time the head developer of Bitcoin, got a hold of us and came up to meet us and had lunch with us and explained it. And he now calls that the most profitable lunch of his life, and credits Free Talk Live with giving Bitcoin the initial boost that got it to where it is today.
Man, I wish I could buy more Bitcoin right now. I feel like this is one of those
cents.
Oh, really? That's just annoying. I'm glad for him, but that just annoys me that I didn't participate. I got my first Bitcoins at 11, which was somewhat respectable, but as a musician, I didn't have much to put in there and I had to sell it as I went along. So I didn't really get some sort of a thing out of it other than joining the revolution. Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of the cases with the early adopters. People that picked it up, in the cents or in the low dollars, they were spending it. They were using it. They were buying alpaca socks with it. They were, they were actually giving it out like crazy. So a lot of people, donating to faucets. And so a lot of people didn't hold as much. I guess people like Roger Ver, who were already very, very wealthy, could buy up large amounts and then sort of just hold that and keep spending fiat. But a lot of very early adopters, didn't do massively well out of it because they were actually promoting it. And thank God they were, because it actually created the network that we all use today and that gives the thing value.
Yeah, I think Andreas Antonopoulos is probably the most famous of which, who relatively recently, like last year or the year before, basically came out and said, hey, I spent my crypto going around to events promoting cryptocurrency, and then the community comes out and gives him like $1 million in crypto, which is probably worth $3 million now. But
that was wild.
Yeah, it was a crazy event. We on Free Talk Live had similar issues. I had to. Roger Ver was our main advertiser at the time with his company Memory Dealers, and he demanded basically to pay his bill in cryptocurrency. And like you said alpaca socks. That makes me know that you were there in the beginning, because my wife asked me, well, what can we spend this on? And I said, VPN services, porn, and alpaca socks. And that was it at the time. Girls Gone Bitcoin is what I'm referring to. I don't know anything beyond that. Somebody will have to research that to find out more. I don't have.
I'm sure we have a willing listener willing to research that.
I'm sure. And, so she's like, well, we can't do this. And I said, well, we're going to have to. So I came up with a compromise at that point. Ian was also a little skeptical taking Bitcoin. And we were going to take one day a week because we were rolling out our Sunday show at the time. So we're going to take one day a week in crypto and then the rest in cash. And he was fine with that for, like 2 or 3 months, in which point he's like, I'm doing the whole thing in crypto. And I said, okay. And I had at that point shown my wife that you could turn Bitcoin into dollars. I don't remember the company. I think it was called Crypto Exchange. And I can't remember the process precisely, but I know that I sent them 1,000 Bitcoin and got $1,000 in crisp $100 bills.
Man, that was a mistake.
Well, if we didn't do these things, it's like we were just talking about with Andreas Antonopoulos, right? If we didn't do these things, then what would things be like today? And I don't know, like everything that happened in the past has to have happened in order for the present to exist, I guess. So
absolutely.
I don't
and that's why I'm
big up for it. And I encourage people not to beat themselves up over the things that they've spent crypto on. So.
Yeah, and I go on about the rehodl, the concept of rehodling. If you're going to buy something with crypto, then just buy it back, buy the crypto back as soon as possible.
Yeah, I didn't think about that back in 2011.
No, neither did I. That's what. Yeah, but again, this is part of building the network. These were crazy days where we, really didn't know if this thing would work for much longer. I mean, I presumed it would, but one thing that I find funny, as you were saying that you guys were all gold bugs, is that gold bugs had such a hard time, a lot of them jumping across to it. I remember there was a guy that used to do, I think his name was Endless Mountain, used to do silver technical analysis, and he just would get so peed off when people were saying, hey, why don't you do some technical analysis on Bitcoin? He's like, no, this is just another type of printing out of nowhere. It's got no intrinsic value and all this sort of thing. But I feel like nowadays there's some gold bugs that are still holding on to this, like Peter Schiff, I guess, is the most famous. But on the other side, we get Bitcoiners who are saying, oh, gold, it's dead, drop gold. And I just don't feel that either of those positions are right. What do you think?
Well, what my position on it is that I went into the meeting with Gavin Andreessen at the Thai Garden in Keene, New Hampshire, with the expectation of dealing with some lunatic who was, was blaspheming the only hope that we had, which is, metal-backed currency. And he asked me questions that I couldn't answer. Now, I have the personality type where if you ask me something and I don't have a good answer for it, I'm going to presume that you have a point. And then I'm going to begin digging into your point, because I want to be right because I'm right, not be right because I refuse to listen. And, so he more or less, said, well, cryptocurrency is backed by something. It's backed by mathematics, and it's backed by the network that allows you to move these things back and forth. They're not destroyable. They're indestructible, right? Try to destroy one of these things and then tell me that it doesn't have value. And I have to take his word for it because I would have no way to destroy a cryptocurrency. So I, began to listen. And then he asked me, what makes gold valuable? And, you know the rattle off points, right? It's, been currency for 5,000 years. Well, that's argumentum ad antiquum. That doesn't make gold worth anything today. Salt used to be worth fighting wars over. Now it's not. Okay. What else makes gold? It's, fungible. You can, malleable, and, all these things that one claims. You can coin it. It's difficult to counterfeit, a whole bunch of things. And which point, Bitcoin fit all of those. And more or less what gold's got is it's gorgeous and you can hold it. And I like those things, and I have gold currently. I advocate for people holding, a certain amount of their wealth in gold. I would not advocate putting, as for an investment, more than, say, 10 to 20%, 20% if you're radical, of your savings into cryptocurrency. because anything beyond that seems crazy. But by the way, that's what I did at one point. So, the stories that we hear from the last crypto run up where the family sells the house and puts the money into cryptocurrency, and they still, by the way, wouldn't have dug out. But nonetheless, somebody did that. Well, we put back in the day, we took out a little bit on a home equity line. I don't have every coin that I ever bought by any stretch of the imagination, but I did a little bit of something like that. I took out a loan to get cryptocurrency at one point. So yeah, these things are realities.
Okay, so what if crypto fails us? Where do we go? Where do we escape? We're going to take our Bitcoins, and where can we run off to?
Okay, so we're getting into the how does one get free conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. First thing I'd say is we have to distinguish between freedom and prosperity. If you want to be free, buy a sailboat, sail out beyond the 12-mile limit, do some fishing, and enjoy yourself out there in whatever way you wish. If your lifestyle is about, I don't know, I like using my cell phone and being in my house and stuff, being with my family and things like that, I would consider those sort of prosperity things, and I'm willing to pay for them, and you're going to have to. If you want to do business, you basically have to do it someplace where, there's civilization. So you have to kind of look at that. There's islands that are unoccupied out there in the world. You could go begin living on them. No one's going to bother you if you're, just out there, but you're not going to have internet. You might be able to drag out some solar panels and eke out a lifestyle, but not much is going to go on there. So I like to distinguish between these two things when we talk about it. And then when we talk about freedoms, you have to look at the freedom that's important to you. Because if we rank the world based on the freest places, I can't remember who came out number one last go around, but it's usually like Hong Kong. Hong Kong's not as free as people make it out to be. You go to Hong Kong, people are complaining about all kinds of things. So, the freest places on earth are free in certain ways. Hong Kong's a great place to start a business, for instance. It's very easy to do that. But there's also lots of other people that can easily start businesses there too. So competition is high. If you want to go, if your lifestyle is about snow skiing, well, you're probably not going to feel that free in Hong Kong. And if you want to smoke pot, then maybe Denver's a better place to be. I don't know. If you want to smoke pot, whore around and gamble, then Vegas seems like it's opening up pretty well.
What about internationally, though? I mean, sure, you can go to some places in the U.S. to live like a degenerate. Like, have you looked into, for example, Chile? I got dragged down to that place. Not such a great call on my part. I know that you've been kind of going to different places. What if the U.S. isn't free enough for people? What if things get too crazy over here?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are doing the perpetual traveling thing. And one of the difficulties is that if you have U.S. citizenship, they do claim the fruits of your labor, even if you aren't in the country. You get a much larger write-off than you would otherwise by living outside of the country. But, still, you got to pay according to their rules. I think that if you probably just don't ever intend to come back to the U.S., you probably don't have to worry about these things. Also, if you just choose to not file a tax return, it's unlikely that they will be paying attention to you these days. But if you have been filing one and then you just suddenly stop, that's going to change things, because the IRS has gone after people who are outside the U.S. trying to get them to pay. They've gone so far as to put people down in Panama just kind of listening in on people's conversations in bars. That's nuts.
Wow, really?
Yep.
Man, they've got nothing else to do with our money, huh?
It's been a while. There's fewer and fewer IRS agents than there used to be, but
why do you think that is? Do you think it's because the IRS isn't funded properly? I mean, why are there less IRS agents? Is it possible to harass everybody at the same time?
I think it's basically what you've said. They're not getting the funding, and the whole federal government is having an attrition problem. Fewer and fewer people want to work for the feds. For whatever reason, they don't want to work for the feds. Maybe they're just bad at recruitment. I don't know. But
I would think that they would be able to fund. I mean, the taxation department is literally their thieving arm. That's
Right.
the one thing that they should definitely be funding. Like if
But it
I
is
wanted to steal
highly
more,
unpopular.
I would keep funding the people that do the stealing.
It's highly unpopular, though. Even Obama could see that, you know, hiring IRS agents does not make people happy. So,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, neither does killing people. People do all sorts of unethical stuff for the government.
yeah, but the people that they kill over there don't have votes, whereas
Right.
the people that they tax do. So
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just,
good point.
just telling you
Yeah.
the news.
I've had friends that have really, it's very, very difficult to deal with the double taxation and FATCA and all these things that the US puts on its long tentacles around the world. And it's pretty much the only state that really goes after expats.
Yeah, it's true. You absolutely nailed it. Sadly, it's not supposed to be a state, but it turned into one. It's supposed to be a federation of states, but you know, that didn't work out. It's been too long. It's become its own state. So, you know, as far as finding places to go, I think that if you look into the perpetual traveler, if you make money in a given jurisdiction, that jurisdiction will claim your value. So, for instance, if you go to England and you're a U.S. citizen, and both England will tax your revenue in England and the United States will tax your revenue in England because you're a citizen. So a lot of people just kind of, you know, move around, do things. A lot of people give up their citizenship to the U.S. too because of tax reasons. Roger Ver famously did it.
Is it easy to do that? Like, can anybody just do that? I thought it's pretty problematic.
Oh yes, depending on your amount of wealth. If you're poor, they don't care. You know, if you are middle class, they don't care. If you are wealthy, they care deeply. And when you decide to give up your citizenship, you raise your profile heavily to the same people that are, you know, that you're trying to get rid of. And they go from not paying that much attention to you to paying a great deal of attention to you. I know when Roger gave up his citizenship, he paid a great deal out in taxes. I don't know what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not. It's his business, not mine. But you know, and as I understand it, they aren't even done looking over the paperwork. He's been out of the U.S. for years.
Yeah, and it's also the other thing to think about is getting a passport in a new environment. And a lot of people collect as many passports as they can, so they can have that freedom of movement. But sometimes, especially if you're older, it's very hard to get a passport. So collect them while you're young.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have an additional passport. It would have been really nice when I went to Japan here recently and got kicked back by immigration. I had more or less a 24-hour flight there and then a 24-hour flight back. It really sucked.
Oh, no.
So a second passport, I could have just flipped that out and maybe that would have made a difference. I don't know.
What do you think? Europe? South America?
I don't think.
I mean, New Zealand, I heard, isn't that great. They just took all their weapons, bunch of doofuses giving those up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where do you even go?
Well, let's talk about weapons real quick because a lot of people think about that as a source of freedom. I personally don't see a correlation between freedom and the right to keep and bear arms, internationally. So the places that get rated as far as freedom goes, United States is usually not even in the top 10. They're in the second, the top 20. And so guns don't necessarily mean freedom. But if you really like guns, then the United States is the place for you. You can figure out different jurisdictions and shopping and things like that.
Yeah, but if you get swatted, the last thing you want to do is pull out some guns.
Oh, yeah, you're dead.
You're dead. So it's really isn't always about freedom. You're right. And there's a lot of countries in the world where there are, guns aren't allowed, but there's other aspects to a lot of freedom. Saying that, of course, a true free society would allow you to do anything as long as you're not aggressing against others.
That's more or less the trick. Tatiana, I don't think there's an easy answer to your question. I think that people have to look. I would look in the Caribbean because, for one, I like warm weather. I would rather have warm weather than not. And I would look at Central America. I'm working on a project right now that I still don't have the ability to talk about too thoroughly, but they're working with the Honduran government to bring about more freedom, a zone where people will be able to open businesses and that sort of thing, but it won't have the social freedoms that some people really want. It's like the ones you can get in Las Vegas. So it's a weighing of the things that you're looking for, as opposed to just saying, I want to go to the freest place. So for instance, I moved to New Hampshire for the Free State Project. Free State Project, New Hampshire at the time was rated as the freest state in the union. And now it's recently been edged out by Florida, and for a variety of good reasons. Much to the chagrin of most of the people who've moved to New Hampshire. But the freedoms that they have in New Hampshire don't necessarily confront me. I'm a felon, but they have great gun freedom unless you're a felon. I can't own a gun, so that doesn't matter to me. I can drive around without a seatbelt, but I always wear a seatbelt. The property taxes are significantly higher here than they are in Florida, and I moved from Florida, so I'm paying more in taxes. There's fewer government officials per capita in New Hampshire, but what difference does that make if I follow all their rules? So it's marginally freer, but I'm not entirely sure what these freedoms, what kind of value they are to me necessarily. I'm free to open a pornography business in New Hampshire, but I'm never going to. So I need the freedom. I want the freedoms that would make me feel free, as opposed to freedoms that might make somebody else feel free. So I think jurisdiction shopping is still the thing that people have to do, and I don't think there's any easy answer as to one place.
Where does one start when doing that research? What can they do in order to take on that beast? Because you've been doing it for years. Have you found any sources that are good at assessing these types of things?
Yeah, I think you've got to ask yourself what makes you happy. And, happiness and freedom ought to be very similar in your life. And, you figure out what it is that is going to make you happy, and then go to the place that has the best options for that. If you need to make money, the United States is still a pretty good place to do that. There's, pretty much everybody in the world is trying to get to this marketplace to do business. And so I would say, for a lot of people, it means make as much money as you can, keep your head down, and then move to some Caribbean paradise and live like a king for the rest of your life. That would be my recommendation.
So don't try and change the system.
Well, you can spend your whole life doing it, and there are a lot of people who did. But you've got I've got 30, 40 years left on the planet. What can I truly expect to achieve in that time frame? And I'm happy to, talk on the radio about freedom and spread the ideas of liberty, but when you're in a democratic system, you're pushing against everybody who's got all their agendas, and they may not care that what you think is fair is fair. They just care about what works for them. So no, I'm not a big advocate of working within or outside of the system to change things. I think that, the best thing you can do for yourself and your family is to make money.
Yeah, and I think also it's a mindset on how you're willing to live, because if you're not plastic enough, if you aren't able to change your lifestyle very easily, you're also constricting your own freedom. So by being more plastic, but like when I say plastic, I don't mean being like a Barbie. I mean like being able to change rhythms, or just pack up and go somewhere else, or not have something but have something that you like more in a different country. I think that's a very important part of being free, is your internal flexibility.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people have who have the answer, right? Like move to Argentina, or move to Mexico, or move to wherever. I'm not saying you can't experience more freedom by moving to those places. I'm simply saying those people are often trying to sell something, and maybe they're selling the thing that you want, right? I mean, if they're selling the thing you want, buy it. But understand that you cannot offload the research for yourself at this time, until we have a place where you can reasonably expect to be freer in every aspect of your life, if you live in Iran, well, yeah, I mean, pretty much any place you can go is a better choice than Iran. But if you're living in the United States, you have some of the worst taxes in the world and taxation methods in the world, but it's also one of the best places to make money. So, there's states that are freer than others. If you're living in New York State, for instance, you're probably dealing with a lot of taxes and a lot of regulation. If you're dealing with, if you're in Indiana, you're dealing with less.
Well, government is bad. That's what we've concluded. That's what we've come up with. You talk about this whole perspective. And when I first got involved in cryptocurrency, libertarian stuff, at one point, my family, I think, was sick of it. And my father, he was like, Tanya, I saw this movie. And in the movie, the girl, she spends her whole entire life fighting the system. And in the end, she's all alone. And I'm like, okay, Dad, thanks for the warning tale. And I found it a little bit annoying at the time because I thought to myself, what could be more important than fighting the good fight? And now, a few years in, I can understand the idea of prioritizing other aspects inside my world, and that's why I've been doing kind of proof of love stuff, just because it kind of opens things up. I think if you're not right within, you can't change the world around you, and having a practical outlook might be a little bit better than just looking for this utopia, which we probably won't find in our lifetime.
I work with Ian Freeman. Some may recognize the name here on Free Talk Live at freetalklive.com. And, I think it was last year or the year before, New Hampshire was changing its rules on who gets to vote and who doesn't. I'm of the opinion that if somebody wants to vote in a government election and presumably have some effect on the changing of people's lives, that they should be able to figure out how to get a government ID. Like if you can, at the very least, like this is the minimum threshold. I think there should be further thresholds on voting, frankly, but whatever, that's the one that's achievable today. And Ian's of the opinion that everybody should be able to vote no matter what, and that they should be able to go in and declare that they shouldn't have to give their name. They shouldn't have to give any kind of identifying factors or anything like that, because he wants to see the system be overloaded with a bunch of difficulties, right? And I think both of those have some validity to them. But here you have two people who believe in the ideas of liberty who have different ideas on how just simply the voting system should work. Well, what I heard as a critique for the Free State Project way, way, way back was it'll never work because dealing with libertarians is like trying to herd cats. And I didn't understand what they meant, because I too was young and full of vim and all those things. And I appreciate the people that have those attitudes, but what I found is that it appears as though the liberty activists want to spend as much time as they can arguing amongst themselves as they are arguing with statists about things. Not to say arguing with statists achieves anything. It doesn't. But, I've just come to the conclusion that seeing, the few things that have gotten done here in the Free State Project, and they have gotten done, which pretty much very few states can claim otherwise, it's a lot of work for mitigable results.
Yeah, and that's I think you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. Is that everyone that lives in a space like New Hampshire has these ideas, and some of them can get so annoying because they just push and push and push, and you have to realize that it is an idea to live totally free, because it's a totally radical idea, and that within that there's a lot of detail that gets argued about. And we also see this in crypto being an anarchic project, is that we get so much arguing about block size and this and that. It gets very tribal. And so, the best thing you can do is really live free for yourself, what you define as free, as much as possible. I think trying to change the system is, look, it's a great thing, but I think we do that by changing ourselves and moving to the most free place possible and living that lifestyle. I don't know about too much preaching anymore. I think even though I do this show, it's nice to spread the ideas, but sometimes we have to pull back a bit on extreme, trying to change the system as such.
I'm fine with doing the preaching. I've been doing Free Talk Live for, I'll going on 2 decades now.
Yeah.
I just don't, I'm not as adamant as I used to be, and I'm not emotionally attached to the outcome like I used to be. So people are going to find the ideas of liberty the way they find them, and hopefully they do find them. But other than that, that's all you can do is take a moral stand and explain yourself again and again and again and again and again until somebody hears it and they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's a rarity to find an adult that's willing to change their mind. You'd use that term plastic, and the plasticity of the adult brain beyond the age of 25 begins to get limited. They've got their ideas and they're set. And, it's the rare adult that's going to change their minds. I was brought to the ideas of liberty past the age of 25. It's because somebody was willing to keep making the points over and over again, and I finally got them. But you got to determine what's worth what in your life. And I don't think you can retrofit the state. I'm not of the opinion that it makes much sense to move a bunch of libertarians to one place and then vote ourselves to freedom. If somebody wants to do that, they should check out Pitcairn Island, because that's going to be your best bet. But if you want to live the life you want to, think about the life you want to live, and then maybe you can get together with some people and you guys can build something. Because I'm really, I'm tired of arguing. I'm ready to build, and I think that's a better solution.
Yeah, I was actually really surprised at how far Liberland's come since the project first started way back when. And, but it's still extremely small. But the broadness of the idea has really spread a lot. And, some of these floating platoons that they've got now and all sorts of stuff. So it's really cool that some people go to the extreme of starting a new state.
Yeah, I've got all the hope in the world for Liberland. I think in their case, it's just about sticking to it. But I think there's some kind of free country in the middle of like Perth or something out there in Australia. I don't know what that's done for them.
Yeah, that's the Principality of Hutt River.
Hutt River, that's right.
Yeah, and a friend of mine, he hit a kangaroo in the middle of nowhere with his car, just a sort of roadkill. I was half dead, and he had to get out there and he had to finish it off because it was just too much pain for it.
So how'd he do it?
And he had a big machete in the car,
okay.
But he ended up covered in blood, and the closest place was the Principality of Hutt River. So he afterwards rocked up and, hey man, it's me. And they looked at him like, oh my God, it's this guy covered in blood asking to come across the border into Liberland.
Into Hutt River. Yeah, I can only imagine the case. I used to have a pig farm, and I slaughtered pigs here and there. And I was driving down the road. I had a big knife sitting on the dash of the truck, and the shirt looks like I've murdered somebody because, well, the difference between what I did and murder is vanishingly rare.
Right.
Thin. But I, talked to other people who are in the business of killing pigs, and they're like, oh yeah, every once in a while that happens. You can imagine what it's like for a cop, in a traffic stop situation where they're just dealing with a guy with a bloody knife and blood all over their shirt, and maybe some splattered on their face, and they look like they've really been working hard. Maybe they got a little bit of dirt. You can only imagine what they think.
Yeah, it was a funny story, but I think the guy that he's very old now. If I'm not even sure if he's passed away, but I know that the Principality has been hit after 27 years or something. Don't quote me on that number, but a long time of being a tax-free zone. It got hit with a massive tax bill, in the 7 figures, 8 figures, I don't know, just huge. Yeah, so we'll see what happens to that poor
It would
place.
be interesting to see what happens to Hutt River, but they've got some recognition. I know the Queen sent them a letter one time, congratulating them or something.
Yeah, and the whole of Australia is really built on squatters' rights, on the idea of, hey, if you're not doing anything with the land, well, then the Crown can claim it off the Aboriginal people. And so, I think this is a similar thing. It's some type of secession, and also saying, look, you guys aren't utilizing this land. I claim it as my own under squatters' rights. And if you deny those rights, then the Queen needs to get out.
Hope the best for those folks in Hutt River.
Indeed. So if people want to learn more about you and your views, Ian's views, where can they hang out? freetalklive.com?
Yeah, freetalklive.com is a great way to get to the show. I would like to mention I have a Facebook page called The Move Here Project. And what that means is that I just kind of critique every cockamamie idea that people come up with. And you can scroll back and look historically at the different places. There have been dozens of them where people propose, let's move to this place or let's move to that place and these kind of things. And I hope that I'm taking as even-handed a view as I possibly can, because every one of these things is going to be some form of failure, right? And hopefully some form of success too. I want to look at the successes. I want to look at the failures. So if anybody wants to, check out the work I've done in that arena and suggest more and work with me or whatever, it's The Move Here Project. And it's on Facebook. Easy way to make a website, The Move Here Project.
Awesome.
Wow, that sounds fascinating. Yeah.
Is Galt Sculch on there?
Yes.
I can only imagine. Must be a wonderful write-up.
Yeah, it's not that long. Basically, I just call it a failed.
Yeah. A failed state, a failed non-state.
Yeah, if only somebody had been there and been trying to tell everybody repeatedly, only to be called a fool. Anyway.
So, were you doing that? I didn't know.
Yeah.
A lot of Galt Sculch went poorly for a lot of people.
No, I kept trying to tell everybody it was a horror movie. I brought down all these famous libertarians. I tried to tell them it was a scam. Everybody just thought I was being a complainer. And I was like, no, for real, this is a scam. And nobody believed me. It was terrible. I felt like I was completely gaslit. I had like a mental breakdown from that place.
Oh, God.
Not a good show.
I'm sorry that happened to you.
No, it was not a good place. And I'm also very skeptical about mysterious land projects in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
So I guess maybe everybody try and find some freedom in your own backyard. That's probably the best bet.
One last quick question. Do you have online communities as well that declare themselves independent? Because that was also a thing, these online countries almost.
It's true. There have been a few of them. Asgardia, I think, is one of them. And I don't know if I think I listed Asgardia, but how do you know if something like this has failed? I believe I mentioned the e-citizenship that was available from Estonia, and
yeah, my brother just got one of those.
Yeah, I don't know what value it is exactly, but I'd be curious to hear if he has any positive things to say about it.
You get a cool card, and it's almost like a two-factor authenticating card.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't know. It looks really nice, little package with your e-citizenship.
There was a while when Consensus was working with Mauritius, and they were going to make the island of Mauritius into the new crypto ether place or something, and that looked really cool, but I haven't heard much from them. Isle of Man was supposed to be a very crypto oriented place at one point, but I don't know. It's not like they got the greatest weather in the world.
Yeah, I don't want to go there. I don't like the cold. Pretty much whenever somebody suggests a cold place, I get very annoyed. That's why I didn't like Chile. I mean, there were also the whole fact that it was a scam, but they were not kidding when they called it Chile. I was freezing the entire time. It was the summertime there and I was still cold.
You were near Concepcion, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that should be pretty warm.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. It wasn't warm at all. I froze. My soul was cold. Awesome. All right. So if everybody wants to listen to you, where should they go? freetalklive.com?
Yeah, freetalklive.com is a great place to start.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mark, for coming on the show. Thank you to our sponsors, to All Tangent Labs with blocktap.io, to Voltoro, of course, and our friends over at Salt Lending. Josh, any final words before we jump off?
No, good luck, and everybody stay beautiful.
All right, cool. Thanks, everybody. Tatiana Show Tuesdays. Go to thetatianashow.com and listen to some old episodes, or go to proofoflovecast.com and grow your emotional intelligence. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next time. Hey there, it's time for the show, the Tatiana Show, where you make friends and talk life and crypto. We gotta think and reflect and use lots of intellect with our hearts when we work together. I know that it can be so hard out there, looking all around and saying that life ain't fair. So that is why we will fight and stay up late at night, listening to the Tatiana Show. This episode of the Tatiana Show is brought to you by Vaultoro. Vaultoro is a gold hedging solution for the crypto community. One of the challenges of investing in cryptocurrencies is dealing with volatility. Keeping a diversified portfolio is a key to healthy returns. I keep about 10% of my crypto assets in gold using Vaultoro. Vaultoro allows me to open a gold wallet in seconds where I can trade easily with cryptos and gold. What I like about using Vaultoro instead of Tether is that the gold in my Vaultoro wallet is insured, audited, vaulted in Switzerland, and unlike fiat money, gold has increased in value for the last 20 years. Visit Vaultoro.com and start today. That is vault, like a gold vault, and oro, which is Spanish for gold. Vaultoro, ole! What's the point of all this technology without a little love in our lives? Our hosts, Tatiana Moroz, Dr. Stephanie Murphy, and Lauren Kasovitz, have come together to bring you Proof of Love. Go to proofoflovecast.com. Thank you for listening to The Tatiana Show. Please follow us on Twitter at Queen Tatiana or on Facebook and Instagram at Tatiana Moroz Music. More episodes can be found at thetatianashow.com, and make sure you leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends. The Tatiana Show has been brought to you by CryptoMediaHub.com, a boutique marketing and PR agency for Bitcoin and beyond.